Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh. Oh. Oh, oh. Yeah, baby, yeah, yeah, yeah. So the reason I said yeah, 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 yeah like that was that is the word that you want to hear from each of these incredibly special guests as we take an overview of investment. How many of you sitting in this audience today are looking for investment in your startup, innovation, disruption companies? Let's try and see if we can see it. Just bring the house lights up. Can you bring the house lights up so we can see? Let's see. How many of you are looking for funding? Okay, that's quite good. Okay, let's go back. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to our three wise professionals that should give you a little bit of insight as to how you might be able to do something. So make sure you give them a nice warm round of applause because they're a little bit scared of you as the audience. What do you think of that? Well, not really, but they like to be challenged. So first of all, we'd like to welcome someone who's actually born in Bulgaria, a fantastic professional. We'd like to welcome from the European Investment Bank, the head of Growth Capital and Innovation Finance, Equity, New Products and Special Transactions. Please welcome Hristo Stoykov. Hristo. From Bulgas to Sofia. It's taken a long time. He was born in Bulgas. You grew up in Bulgas. Fantastic. Please take a seat there. So, Hristo, great to have you here on the stage with us.
Thank you.
And next, we'd like to get someone who's come in all the way from Tel Aviv, really, really interesting observer of the future and future innovation and investment, partner at Lakestar, very important Swiss innovation investment company. Please welcome Mr. Gilad Novik. Gilad, give him a nice, make him feel really welcome. Gilad, why don't you take that side there, so now we can really feel protected. Great to see you again. Then last but by no means least, all the way from London, somebody who really has got a great insight and overview of things all around the world in terms of disruptive companies. We'd like to welcome the global lead for disruptive mergers and acquisitions and global mergers and acquisitions services. Please welcome today to the stage Mr. Sriram Prakash. Sriram.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, before you came out here today, we asked the audience how many of them were looking for funding and what they should be doing about it. Well, I think we got about 55% of the audience said that they might be looking for funding. So, what I thought we'd like to do is to at least start this off with you, please, Hristo. You're based in Luxembourg. You've been there for 13 years.
Correct.
And you have a portfolio in the European Investment Bank of some $2 billion that you have invested in companies, and you are investing between 500 million euros and €1 billion each year.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. Just a side note, the European Investment Bank is the bank owned by the European Union member states. And usually it's very famous for financing airports, ports, large banks. But what I'm doing for the European Investment Bank is I'm heading a specific product which we launched 4 years ago, and we call it venture debt. It is a unique product that is available now in Europe. It came actually into being in the US some 30 years ago, 40 years ago maybe, and the first lenders of such sort were the Silicon Valley Bank, and then in Europe later we had Kreos Capital coming and Silicon Valley Bank coming into London, but generally committing very small amounts of money. So what we did 4 years ago is we started this program which is targeting startup companies investing mainly in disruptive innovation. So that's biotech, life science, software, engineering, any type of company that actually invests a lot of its energy and resources into research and innovation, and companies that usually need large tickets financing. So we're talking about tickets from 7.5 million euros up to 50 million euros on individual deals. And what we do for them is we provide a long-term capital that actually sits alongside the venture capital investment that they have in their equity. So it's a non-dilutive capital. For those that are not familiar with the term.
So just explain to the audience what non-diluted capital
Exactly.
might mean.
So if you're looking to raise money, like you have to get used to it, all these terms like cap tables, non-dilutive, dilutive stock options. So non-dilutive means it is a loan which actually does not dilute the shareholdings of the original investors and the original founders. So you will not see us coming in, taking part of your company, voting with this part, and looking to exit the way the venture capitalists exit. It is a loan product that we add on top of the equity. Therefore, it's non-dilutive, but it improves the return for everybody that has been originally invested in the company, for the venture capitalists and for the original investors. And the program has been quite successful. We have built a portfolio of around 2 billion. I have 30 people working in my team covering the whole Europe, and I'm glad to announce that one of our latest deals was a Bulgarian company called Software Group. For those that actually deal with software in Bulgaria, probably the group is quite famous. They do software for banks, mainly for banks outside of Europe, Africa, and South America. It's been quite a successful company. They grew through a few stages of financing, and we came now with a larger ticket to finance them. We have quite a few Bulgarian companies in the pipeline, and generally, the product has seen a lot of interest from the Scandinavian countries, Central Europe, Southern Europe, and now more and more Eastern Europe. There are some trends, and we can discuss them later, but generally that is something that I would like to share with you today because it's a new product, and it's a product that I think more and more startups and investors in Europe should be aware of and take advantage of this product.
So do you exclusively invest in European companies? Is that the essence of what the EIB is?
Generally, yes. What we invest in is what we call projects. So that we always tie our investments to certain project, and a project could be the salaries of a certain R&D staff. You want to build an R&D center in Sofia, you're an American company, we can still invest in you because the cost and the actual investments of the R&D, the creation of innovation will be in the European Union. So it's not exclusively for EU-owned companies, but it's for EU-based investments.
So give us an example. I read that you invested in a company in Europe that makes artificial hearts. Now, I know that Plamen Rusev, who organizes Webit, speaks about all the people who come to Webit having great heart. But you're doing something with an artificial heart. How much did you invest in that company?
Absolutely. We committed 25 million euros to a company in France that is creating artificial hearts. And those hearts currently, okay, you cannot live as a cyborg forever with it,
right,
but it expands the life of people who are waiting for a transplantation of actual heart by 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
It improves their lifestyle, which means that they can go out, climb the stairs, go for a walk, talk to people.
Come to Webit.
Come to Webit with their little battery, because it needs a little battery behind, but still, they can come to Webit.
Incredible. And then you've also invested in electric supercars, special 3D printers in Holland. I mean, you've got a wide variety. It's not as if you're focusing particularly on human sciences, although that's a big element in Eastern Europe and in the Balkans.
Exactly. What I can share with you is, because I have a pan-European view of the innovation that happens in Europe, is that Europe is an amazing place for deep tech. We hear about all these software innovations that are coming from the States, and there are process improvements. You have food deliveries, like car hailing services. But Europe is really, really strong in core technology. So we have a company that invents hearts. We have a startup in Croatia called Rimac. Mate Rimac, if people know it, a Croatian, young Croatian. Absolutely the same story that you hear in Silicon Valley. Dropped out of technical college, started, basically bought a BMW Series 3 second-hand, retrofitted it to make it an electrical car, won an award with it, and afterwards he got an investment from Porsche, now Kia, Hyundai. They're all investors in his company, valued hundreds of millions of euros. And he's producing the fastest electrical car in the world. It has 1,700 horsepower, and it goes to 100 in 1.8 seconds.
Oh, incredible. What do you think of that from Croatia? Yes,
Croatia.
I saw that in Vienna a couple of years ago. It was just amazing technology coming out of that, a really interesting entrepreneur. Gilad Novik, you have a fascinating career. You've been involved in developing great startups from Israel. Correct. You were involved with Waze. How many of you in the audience use Waze? What?
Yeah, there are quite a few of them.
Quite a few. We can't really see. Let's bring the house lights up. Let's have a look at this. Bring the house lights up, please. Come on. Hey, he's gone to sleep. Gone for a beer. Okay, Gilad, but you invested in Waze.
Correct.
Early on.
Yes.
What-
Well, I wouldn't call it early, but it was in the middle of, the way of ways.
What attracted you to those three guys actually in the team that developed what became a company that was bought by Google for $1.6 billion?
$1.3 billion.
1.3.
Yeah, I think the interesting part was the concept. So it's frustrated entrepreneurs that wanted to actually solve a big problem. The big problems was navigation, and one of the biggest problems of the existing players was that they had non-updated maps. So what they came up was the wisdom of crowd. By using the movement of drivers along the ways at the beginning in Israel and then further down all over the world, they got the most updated maps in the world. And that was quite an exciting...
That was the key.
Yes, that was the secret sauce, which was really, really super sophisticated.
And how much did you invest in it?
We can't actually...
Well, just give me an idea. Was
I
it
think
$100 million? Was it $1 million?
No, it was below $50 million, but the exit was actually quite impressive, I have to say.
And how long did it take before the company was sold?
We were lucky, it was actually less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years. My God, you've got to buy me a drink tonight. No, 10 drinks.
Absolutely.
And so, Gilad, now you are with Lakestar, which is this very important Swiss-based investment company, and your 20 years of experience in the business, plus you did a degree in telecommunications. You serve on the advisory board of the
Technion University.
of the big, very important, the Technion in Israel, very, very important. And also, more importantly, you've also invested in interesting companies in AI, DeepMind, Misfit, Holla. These are interesting companies. Basically, you invested in Facebook, Skype, Spotify, Airbnb. You were in very, very early. What is your focus now?
So just to start, I was very lucky, I think, to actually get access to those deals during the days. But it's kind of the same concept. It's mostly to actually find really good entrepreneurs with a very interesting technology behind a problem that they are actually coming to solve. And the space that I'm looking is mostly into deep technology. Deep technology can come from artificial intelligence all the way to big data analytics and further down the line.
Well, Bulgaria's got a very good reputation for being able to develop some of those key back-end data processing products. Clearly, it's an important aspect of the mathematical expertise that you find here in Bulgaria.
That's one of the reasons why I'm in Webit.
That's why you're at Webit.
Of course, to find those cool companies that actually, doing deep technology.
And have you had any good conversations here
Not
yesterday?
Yet. Not yet.
Not yet? And well, maybe tonight?
Definitely tonight.
Very good. At the party, because they dance very, very well here, and they're dancing around wanting to get some money out of those pockets. That's what we need to do, everybody. But you're also focusing essentially on automotive, big data tech,
Correct.
and AI.
Correct. Yes. So those are the fields that we think that we can bring value to the companies. Other than money, when entrepreneurs try to raise money, it's not always about the money. It's about the money, but also the added value that that specific investor can bring to the table. In our case, I think it's our connections with the local industry in Europe, whether it's the DACH countries or even when it's come to regulations. Regulation is a big thing that can actually make a difference for a company, whether they will actually succeed or not. I can give an example, for example, with Airbnb. Airbnb are blocked from operations in Barcelona and also in Berlin for a little bit. And they don't have the voice behind the company that can actually push the regulators to be more supportive for advanced technology to actually enter into our lives. So that's something that we're very strong at and we bring value. That was one example. Another example is actually last mile mobility. You can think of all the e-scooters that we start to see them in major cities. And also there are some cities that actually ban one operators and what they need is actually help in order to actually change the regulations in those cities.
Right. Very interesting. Viewing the future. Sriram, it's great to have you here. Sriram Prakash. Deloitte's one of the big four auditing groups, but actually Deloitte's also operate very, very much in investment area and mergers and acquisitions and looking at interesting, cool talent and helping guide the business strategy, the unfolding strategy. It was just amazing to me. Is this true? Since 2015, $850 billion has been spent on mergers and acquisitions business.
Absolutely, we've been tracking that. Just to round it up, you're right. When most people think of Deloitte, especially startups, they get quite nervous. Big corporate, what are we going to do? They'll charge us arm and leg. Deloitte is so much beyond that. It's the largest professional services group in the world, 35 billion company. And we do huge amounts of work with Deloitte Digital, with startups, with M&A, helping ultimately all the startups need exit. But the figure you've mentioned, 850 billion, I'm glad you mentioned that because just think about it, right? If you just put it, that's more than the M&A in most countries. And that's what innovation is doing to CEOs. It's giving them sleepless nights, and companies all across are buying lots of innovative assets, and 850 billion worth has been spent in the last 3 years. And I'll tell you one more interesting thing about it. We've been tracking this number over the last few years. In 2016, we saw something really interesting. For the first time, the non-tech sector started overtaking the tech sector in buying technology assets. And we thought, well, it happened again in 2017, 18. Now it's a key feature of the market. This is a fundamental shift.
So here's a question for you and for all of you, actually. When you speak about $850 billion since 2015 being invested in innovation companies, people that are sitting here in this audience that have got great Bulgarian innovation companies, even getting $1 billion is like a dream that you could never realize, although I think that there's one company that you've been working on where you managed to grow their valuation from $1 billion to $6 billion. So you really can add some special sauce to your clients.
I wish so. I think you cannot take away the hard work of some of the startups which are doing. But let me just pick up one thing, right? We talked about Waze, right?
Yeah.
Just think about it. Do you really believe that if Google puts their head to it, or not just Google, any company, within a weekend they can't produce a company like Waze?
No, they cannot.
Well, I will say yes, because if you purely look at it from a technology standpoint, answer is yes.
Yeah.
So my message to a lot of startups is don't look at it purely from a technology. See what you're bringing to this large corporate. What Waze was bringing was not a technology. Waze was bringing a social platform. How many of you, maybe a raise of the audience, how many of you use Facebook? Almost everybody. And how many of you use Google Hangouts?
Small number.
You see, Google understands technology, but less so on the social, and that's what Waze provided. So to answer your question, I think startups should be brave, bold. Do not underestimate what you can bring to the table for very large corporates, because you bring a very different, unique set of offerings to corporates. That's why they're interested in you.
So, Hristo, when you hear, first of all, with this audience, with these companies that are looking for money, I know, for example, there are some factors that hold up innovation financing in Europe. What would you give as guidance to these entrepreneurs here, these potentially great entrepreneurs, to develop something, to get their money? What should they do to help smooth the pathway for them to get funding?
Well, when you're at the stage of, it depends on the stages. When you're at stages of seed financing, a good angel investor is a good start. And angel investors, they come in areas where you have been, like historically having a lot of exits, like people who understand the industry. The same is with the VC. A quality VC in a Series A funding does bring a lot of respect and value for follow-on rounds. They will set up proper corporate governance. You have a split between the management and the oversight of a board with an independent board members. These are key flags that we look for. Other things that we look for is your ability to scale up. Now, people say, okay, hardware is hard. Yes, it's hard because it's not just the technology, it's the whole business behind producing something, creating the supply chain. I mean, Elon Musk has seen that firsthand, right? Like you can see how many Teslas are pumping out from the factory. So it is something that you have to keep in mind. If you're focusing on software, scale up is not that hard. Software does not constitute such a huge risk of innovation. What you have to have is the flags for the investors to see. A good corporate governance, good backing from the original rounds of some investors, and honestly, the vision and the scale to actually have access to good people, because people become a bit of a limiting factor. When Nokia fell apart, like everybody got a bit nervous in Finland, because we do invest in Finland. We invested in 7 companies the same year afterwards, all basically employees who were left out. And one of my first investments, I'll share, was Angry Birds. So you know the game. So that was the first venture debt investment that EIB did, Angry Birds. So we went up there, and they were so proud. They said, yes, it was me and my father and my brother here, and now we have 300 people from 55 nationalities, and they felt so proud of it. Yeah, but if it was a Nokia next door, you have 20 people from the same nationality. So the thing is also, you have to have access to good people actually that you can scale up, because this is a key factor for us when we look at it. And of course, the professional setup of the whole fundraising. It is a theater. You have to learn your role. Like, you cannot go on and believe that, okay, if you're a brilliant engineer and a technology expert, you will be able to run a company. There are a lot of issues that come across the way. And I've seen firsthand good ideas, good companies failing to raise financing because the original investors or the original inventors don't want to basically give up their control. Don't realize the moment where the company becomes internationally expanding, where they have to step back and say, maybe my role now is to be a board member, maybe my role is to be the CTO, not the CEO. Maybe I should hire someone who scaled up companies globally before and they know all the issues around it. So these are things that you should think about. And honestly, I think the more exits or the more fundraisings happen in a certain area, like Sofia, for example, the better the quality of the next rounds become and the better the companies that come afterwards. So, as I said, the message is of hope and really prospects, because I see that these things perpetuate. It happens across Europe.
Agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, let's pose you a couple of quick questions so that we can try and get a feel. These are some of the areas that people have been talking about, saying these are the areas of the future. AI, machine learning, AR, IoT. I hope everyone knows what these abbreviations are. Okay? Not okay, but IoT. Clean tech, blockchain, fintech, GovTech, government technologies to open up government. So would you agree that these are some of the key areas? Can you think of any other real leading edge areas? And also, one final point, when you are looking to invest money in these companies that you spot, maybe there'll be some here in this audience, do you back the team or do you back the product? What do you say?
So
team or product? Team or the product of the company?
One doesn't go without the other. I think it's both. It's most important to actually, trust the team and see whether they will be able to actually deliver at the end of the day. So it's a task for the entrepreneurs to actually see whether they actually dream of a product, but then whether they can actually deliver.
And then what do you say? We'll come to the next.
Well, I've been asked that question before, and I always give an example, the Concorde. Right? Which is the fastest commercial airplane that you could have in the past. You don't see many Concordes flying around. So having the best product doesn't necessarily mean that you have the best business case and the best team to back it up. So I agree, it's a complex view that you have to take.
So I think, there's a saying, right? It takes a village to raise a child. To me, it's the same thing. Team, product, but you need the ecosystem around you. There's no one lives in isolation in a cave. You need to have your connectivities with the corporate world, with the universities, with routes to market, the VC community, with advisors like us. And the more network, the more well connected you are, the better the chances of exits.
So what would you give as an advice to the young entrepreneurs in this audience about just that?
Tell you what, when I go for a lot of startup pitches, and they usually start off like, we are the Uber for travel, or we are so and so for this. That presents two challenges. One, it fixates in their minds that once you say Uber, our valuation has to be 20 times, so suddenly they lose the plot. And more importantly, they lose what their core thing is all about. So my key advice is both for startups as well as investors, don't fall for the hype. Don't call yourself the AI of this and whatnot. What is really more important and what gets investment is, what are the underlying shifts in technology which you're trying to disrupt? What are the underlying shifts in consumer behavior which you're trying to disrupt? And more importantly, don't forget this, what are the fundamental areas which are getting convergence, right? Today, what is fintech? It's a convergence of bank, telecom, retail, and everything else. And together, all these things bring a series of disruption which is well beyond name tagging as AI, IoT, etc. And then if you have a very clear story around that, both from an investor as well as startup, then you have a chance and a pathway to go somewhere.
So if somebody here in the audience has got a game that they feel is better than Candy Crush, would you support them? Oh, we got beaten by the clock. Do you think that they should support someone who comes up with something that is better than Candy Crush? Thumbs up or thumbs down? What do you say? I think they're dead. I don't think they're alive. Yes, we can't see you. Let's see. What are they saying? What do you say?
Yes.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
What do you say, guys? Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but these three very wise professionals can give a lot of guidance and might be the opening for you to find that cash that can develop your company so maybe you can be the Waze of tomorrow or the Google of tomorrow. Remember, Google started only 20 years ago in a little garage in Northern California. And look at them today. Is it possible for someone from Bulgaria? Final comment.
To become the next Google. It's hard.
Well, depends on the company. Possible
It
from
is
Bulgaria?
hard.
Here's what I'll say. Ideas come from anywhere. Companies come from a few hubs. So make sure you connect the ideas with the hub, and then you get your billion-dollar realization.
And this is from a man that wrote a book called The Next $1 Billion
Idea.
Idea.
Everything is possible.
Everything is possible.
Everything is possible. People need to believe in themselves. And,
People, right.
And it can actually come from Bulgaria. You know, Israel is a small country, and a lot of actually innovations came from Israel, so I don't see a reason why it wouldn't actually come from here.
1% of the world's population, Israel. 19% of the world's cybersecurity, money, innovation, and development. Ladies and gentlemen, let us thank Gilad, let us thank Sriram, and let us thank Hristo, Bulgaria. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
My name is Ralph Simon. Great to be with you. Thanks for being with us.